Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to combine this little lovely baby into the orchid basket. Now the difference between the colour, as you can see, is, well, it's not an issue, but there is a difference, so we're going to need to deal with that. And then of course we need to deal with the actual composite work. So the way I do it, you can do it in two ways. You can do the colour change first, which quite often will make your life easier, or you can do it after combining. For me, I prefer to do it before. Well, actually, I don't. I like to do it after, but I think doing it before, especially if you're a beginner, is a lot easier than doing it after. So that's what we're going to do. Sorry, I'm messing about on my screen, so let's just go to Window, Arrange and Tile, which will show us both. Okay, so let's do this. So first of all, I'm going to grab a colour from the backdrop. So if I'm going to take the paintbrush here, I'm going to press Alt and I'm going to sample blue from anywhere within the bowl. And if you look on the middle left where I'm circling here, that top layer is going to change to whatever I'm sampling. So if you look there, it's changing to a lighter blue. Now that's changed to a bright pink from the orchids. So really I want a good blue, but not too bright if possible. Okay, that will do. That's more of a sort of teal colour actually. So I'm going to go and work on the baby image first. Make sure you have the original saved. And top right, if you have a look, the shortcut on the Apple Mac for duplicating layer is Control J, and that will basically do just that. So what I want to do is I want to change the colour of the fluff to match the bowl. So I have the paintbrush tool selected. In middle left where I'm circling, the top layer is blue. And the blending mode, if you look on the top left, is colour. And then you can start painting over and seeing what happens. Now opacity should be 100% for the time being. And you can see that colour is changing nicely to a colour which is similar that's in the bowl. It's a little bit too light for my liking actually, so I'm just going to grab another one and see what that does. Okay, that's brighter. I prefer that one actually because it's, although it's more vibrant, it matches the tone better. Okay, so literally you can just over here just do a rough selection. Not selection, just roughly go over it with your paintbrush. You only have to pay more attention once we get to the edges. And again, you don't have to do that straight away. You can actually do that a little bit later once you've combined it. Whatever works better for you, really. Just remember the big rule of composites. Well, it's not a big rule, it's a rule I've made up, which is if it's going to take you hours, it's probably not worth it unless it's like a one-off work of art or something. Composites are meant to reduce the time you spend in front of the computer, not increase. So when I say reduce time spent in front of the computer, what I mean is you can create extra images for your client galleries without spending the time actually shooting them, but you shouldn't add that time back on later on in front of the computer because that doesn't make any sense. Essentially what you're looking to do is deliver more value to your clients, but not at a cost of you spending a huge amount of extra time. I hope that makes sense. So, okay. So as you can see, I have gone over. Now, you could actually change the colour of this wrap, but I'm not going to because I think it's going to match the colour of the orchids really nicely. And if not, we'll just adjust it so it does. It's difficult sometimes because although I have a soft brush here, some of the edges of this wrap are fluffy, but actually I think it's going to meld in quite nicely simply because the edges are quite shadowy, where little Esme has sunk in nicely into the backdrop. Now we're getting to hair, so you have to be super careful on hair. You can see that over there, I've gone over the hair and it's made it look a little bit weird. So I'm going to sort of delete that back out. But yeah, it's a difficult one because obviously we've got the hair on the red fluff, so you might need to lose some hair. But that's something that we can work on once we've done the transfer. Okay, so before and after. Oh, hang on a minute, I've missed a bit. Just be careful you don't go over skin, because that blue skin is not really normal. Okay, right, so top layer, bottom layer. Yeah, so what we can do now, just make sure that we haven't painted over the skin anywhere, because if we did, we want to correct that mistake now. And we have just over there, you can see we've got a nice blue ear, which is a bit suspect, so I've just erased over that. Okay, so I'm going to press layer, flatten image, and now I'm going to grab this layer and I'm going to pop it on top of my digital backdrop. So here we go. I'm just going to grab, drag and drop. I'm actually going to save this one with the adjusted colour. I have got another copy of it on my other computer, so I'm not worrying too much about saving over an existing file. But obviously if you're going to save it, just rename it so you've got the original still there. Okay, so what I've done, sorry I didn't actually say what I'm doing. So now this file is sitting on top. What we need to do is we need to resize Esme to fit into this bowl. So top layer, top right, this is where you adjust the opacity of this top layer. You want to go to about 50% so you can see the layer underneath. And we can now position her so she fits into this bowl nicely. We're going to go to Edit, Free Transform. We're going to press on the Shift button on the left hand side and we're just going to pull the corner in. Now holding the Shift button means that her proportions will be retained. You're not going to end up distorting her in any way. And you want her to be just inside of those bowl edges. With fluffier bowls you can get away with them being just over the edges, which could make it look even more realistic, but with sharp edges of the bowl you can't do that. If you're on free transform you can also rotate her. You can do whatever you like really, just bear in mind the direction of lighting doesn't get changed. Because if you rotate too much it would look like lighting is coming from a different direction to the backdrop, which you don't want. Okay, so I've done that. I'm going to increase that to 100%. I'm now going to press Alt and bottom right hand side, third icon from the left is the layer mask. By clicking Alt it will cover up Esme. So if you look in the top right you've got the bottom layer, which is a digital backdrop, and the top layer, which is Esme all nicely resized, which is right here where I'm circling. And on top of her we have a black layer mask. So now that we've got her positioned in the bowl and the colour's been changed, all we need to do is reveal her. So to reveal her, we are going to go to the left hand side of the screen, middle, I'm circling right there, we're going to click switch, we're going to select a white paintbrush. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint Esme back into the image. So we are painting, go back to top right, on top of this black layer mask, ensure that this is selected, ensure you have the white paintbrush selected in normal mode, and we are now going to paint Esme in. So again, you don't have to be super precise at this stage. We've already changed the colour of the blue, so it shouldn't look too much out, but what will look out is the texture, because the texture that Esme is lying on is softer than the texture of the digital backdrop. Right, so make sure that you have painted all of the baby in. There we go. Perfect. You could get away with that actually, but I'm going to just do something a little bit more precise. So yeah, so she is in. Oh, there's the edge. So now once you've painted her in, what will happen is this is where we're going to do this magic bit of blending that finishes the image off. So switch to the black, erase any harsh edges, And now what you're going to try and do is going to go to about sort of 30%, and we're going to just reveal some of that original texture that was in the digital backdrop. So like I said, the Esme texture is a little bit out of focus. The original digital backdrop is a little bit sharper, but we can actually achieve a nice blend of the two. The main thing is just remember, do not paint away those lovely shadows that the baby has around her, because then it will not look like she was actually in the bowl. She needs to be sunk in. So see what I'm doing right now is I'm just painting in some of that original fluff. Right, so let's do before and after, and you can see what's going on there is that we've managed to successfully paint Esme in. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to flatten the image, because I'm happy that all of her is in the bowl, but I'm just going to go Control J, which will duplicate the layer again, grab the paintbrush, make sure I've got a blue selected, and just go over sort of any areas. Oops, hang on, step backwards, I wasn't on colour mode. So now I'm on colour mode, and opacity is at the maximum, and I'm just making sure there's no sort of red bits left. And you can keep sort of changing the colour. So if you go to Alt, you can sample colour from wherever you want and then change the colour of the fluff. But really what you want is you want it all to be a similar colour. So you see what I've done is I've messed about, and I've ended up changing all these shades of blue, which is not a good thing. In fact, I have made a cardinal sin. Look there. I didn't paint the baby back in properly, which is very, very bad. So I'm going to go to history, and this is not a computer I normally work on, so I'm not sure how much history it retains. Oh yes, it has. So before I flattened the image, yeah, there we go. I've managed to go back in history, so I can now actually go to back to the layer mask, make sure I've got the white paintbrush selected, and correct that mistake. There we go. So be very, very, very careful to make sure that the baby is actually painted in. I was being cocky there and too fast, and that didn't happen. So I'm going to go to layer, flatten image, and yeah, there's some issues with colour just there. So Control J, remember, grab the paintbrush, colour mode, opacity 100%, Alt, sample an image, so make sure, if you look middle left where I'm circling, that there's a blue in the top layer. And now I'm just going to make some adjustments here. Okay, now over here it looks like that hair, I had no choice but to paint it blue because we couldn't retain the red fluff, and the same with the headband. So I'm going to do some cloning here, where I'm going to go Control J, grab the clone tool, and sample from an area nearby, Alt, and just maybe just clone away those bits that we had to make blue, because obviously there's not that I've met any babies that exist with blue hair. That would be a little bit weird. Okay, so now you can flatten the image. Now I think that the baby's wrap matches those top orchids really nicely, but if you want to take this even further, you could go Control J, you could grab a colour from either the top or the bottom orchids, whatever really you like, let's say the bottom ones. That will select a pink, if you look on the left hand side in the middle where I'm circling, and you could make sure the brush is in colour mode, that's top left, and you could, you know, change the colour of the wrap, for example, into purple. You'd have to be very careful because it's, in this instance the skin is poking through, so if you went over that, that would make the skin pink too. So probably not appropriate for this tutorial. The other option is either Control J, and you could essentially grab the clone tool, and you could get rid of the bit with a skin just by going Alt, grabbing some of the wrap over here. There we go, and suddenly there is no skin poking through. you know, whatever you like. And then you could also use an alternative method of color changing, which is, if you could see bottom right, and I'm going to go to hue saturation. Now if I click hue, as you can see, that changes the whole image, and I could change that wrap if I wanted to, I don't know, pink, purple, green, whatever I want really, but say I changed it to, I don't know, purple, and that adjustment layer is right there. I would then go edit, fill with black, so the layer mask would now cover up that correction I made, and all you would have to do is grab your white paintbrush and paint that layer back in. So yeah, straightforward. Again, unless you've cloned over the skin and you're planning to go through over every strand, that will make the skin also that purple colour, but you could get away with it. So that would be a better match from a colour point of view to the orchids, but I'm going to leave this one red because I am cool with that. I think it looks fine. The last step of any composite is obviously any sort of brightness contrast adjustments, or you could put on your own little filter that you use. If you have a matte look, if you have a more contrasty look, you can increase, decrease the saturation. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Control J and I'm going to click multiply, because for me the image is a little bit, the baby's a little bit bright, so I'm just going to increase the, there we go, and I think that looks a little bit, there we go, just a little bit better. The baby's skin is not standing out anymore. You could in fact again use a layer mask, so Alt, bottom right, put the layer mask back on and just paint in that darkness over the baby and not over the flowers, so the digital backdrop remains as it is, but the bowl and the baby go a little bit darker. I mean, there are so many different ways of doing the same thing in Photoshop. You know, we all have our own ways. I tend to use the lasso tool quite a lot, so I'll make a loose selection around the baby like this, and then you can go to the adjustment layers, top right, go to curves, and you can work with curves where you can darken, lighten, really do whatever you want. There's so many online tutorials for this that you don't need another one from me. If you would like one, I'm happy to do it. But yeah, there you go, job done. And she looks nice and snug. It looks believable, which is the main thing. And apart from me doing too much talking, it didn't, hopefully, the actual work didn't take too long. Take care and see you again.